Here's Golf to Go with Frank LaRosa.
Welcome to the Golf to Go radio hour and people who play the game. I'm Frank LaRosa, and we like to get together every week and talk a little bit about golf. And pretty excited today to have as my guest Tom Addis, a 53-year member of the PGA of America. Tom has a storied career, and it would take the entire time we've got to have this show to talk about everything he's done, but just some of the highlights include the fact that he was president of the PGA. He spent many years as executive director of the Southern California PGA, and he's a member of the National PGA Hall of Fame. It's really a pleasure to have you on the show. Tom, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you, Frank. And it's a great morning and happy to be here and happy to be with you for sure. Thanks.
You know, it's always fun to get together with friends and to talk about the game of golf. And you've certainly had your experiences and your share, but to kind of give people a little perspective of where this all began. Your dad was a PGA professional, so I'm guessing the story of how you got into the game has something to do with that. But what was it like your first time on a golf course?
Yeah, my dad was a PGA professional, and I'm his namesake. His name was Tom Addis. I happen to be the third, and my other son, along with Brian, is Tom the fourth. So it's we've kept that family tradition, all in the golf business. My father started out, interestingly enough, he's a Buckeye, and he played golf there. He didn't graduate from Ohio State, but they during the war moved out here, and he worked in the government, and then kept his golf going. Good player. Moved to the San Joaquin Valley, and his first professional job was at Fresno Airways and for Ray Forrester. And worked for Art Forrester and was at Airways for a couple years, and then went to Madera Country Club. I started playing golf at Airways, caddying and playing golf, and it's a typical caddy story. You know, you go out for your round and you get paid $1.25, and you go in the restaurant and buy your Delaware Punch and a 50-50 bar and ice cream bar, and you spend all your $1.25. But then we go out and play golf afterwards. And my first experience playing golf was my dad cut off a 7-iron like everybody else does, and I hit dirt clods out in the field next to our house, which we lived behind the golf course on Clinton Avenue over there. And that's how I started. He then moved to Madera Country Club when it was a 9-hole golf course. Interestingly enough, and I hope you have time for this, I hadn't been back to Madera Country Club for, a long time. I'm 80 years old now, and this was last year. And my first paying job, other than that caddy job, was at Madera Country Club, where I actually got a paycheck, and they took out taxes and all that kind of stuff. I made $1 an hour. But my main job for my dad at Madera was, we planted new oleanders going up the driveway, and my job was to keep those alive. So most of the day I would irrigate those oleanders, and then I'd go out on the golf course and do some other things and go back and check on the oleanders. Anyway, we decided, Susan and I, my wife, decided to drive into Madera from the 99, and I wanted to see Madera Country Club. I hadn't been there forever, and just see if those oleanders were still there. And sure enough, we pull up in the driveway, and the oleanders, what is that? That was from 1957. Were still there. So it was pretty fun to see that and look back on that piece of history in regards to my family. And then we moved to the Bay Area. My dad was pro at the the old original Hayward Golf Course. And that's kind of where I really got into the game and played junior golf in Northern California with players like Ron Cerruto and Jimmy Johnson and Dick Lotz, who I was able to see and talk to, and which was really cool at Len's Hall of Fame dinner meeting the other day, and had a great time there. And then ended up moving back into Southern California, worked with my dad a little while longer, then went to I couldn't get in the PGA where I was. So long story short, went to Singing Hills Golf Club and Resort in El Cajon down near San Diego, and was able to register in the assistance program. And I call it assistants because it wasn't the apprentice program yet. This is back in 1967.
Yeah.
And that's how I started with my PGA membership. Ended up getting my membership in September of '72, and here we are.
Tom, in those early years, we mostly just kind of go to work and get our jobs done and and make a buck an hour in the beginning. But did you ever have a moment to think about what the future might be like? Could you ever have envisioned all of the things you would have accomplished?
Uh, of course not, Frank. You especially when you're younger. I wanted to go to college. I wanted to play golf in college. I went to Foothill College for a year. Met good friends like Denny Plato and of course Gary and those professionals and others, and played my junior golf. And I always wanted to go to school. We moved back to San Diego, and I went to Grossmont College down there with the hopes of transferring to University of Pacific. And I wanted to go to University of Pacific because at that time they had a theological school or a seminary, and I wanted to be believe it or not, I wanted to be a priest.
Wow.
Back then, an Episcopal priest, and ended up taking another route as my priest at that time said when I informed him that I was going to get married and was going to have to go to work. He said, "Well, you just have a different Sunday morning calling." And so I'll never forget that. And that's when Susan and I got married. I was in 1966, and I went fully into the golf business, and from there, that was again in 1966, and at a place called Sun Valley Golf Course in La Mesa, which is a night lighted par three golf course. Or excuse me, had a night lighted range, but a par three course, and I worked there with my dad at first, and then on my own. But again, as I said earlier, couldn't get into the PGA. So I had some good friends at Singing Hills, and I ended up going down to Singing Hills in August of 1967, and was there for 31 years.
Wow.
Had a great, worked with great people there. The owners there, Steve Harrell and Jerry Hollingsworth, two of my huge mentors and supporters for that long, plus the team that was there at Singing Hills all through those years. We still stay in touch. We still talk with each other. We still see each other, all that group, much like the alums of the PGA, the same thing.
Right.
And that's what's pretty cool about what we do as well.
Tom, after all the 53 years you've spent in the PGA, and even in the relatively short time that I've known you, but maybe 12, 15 years now, I guess, you certainly are a role model to many. You talked about your mentors. Who were your role models along those years?
Well, there's so many, Frank. Of course, my father. My father was a fine gentleman. He worked hard. He was a turkey farmer when we first moved to Fresno. I'll never forget being in the back of those trucks when I was a little boy, shoveling that stuff. And one of the worst experiences that I've ever had in that regard. But at the same time, you look back and that's all great. My father, again, as you mentioned, was a PGA golf professional, very fine gentleman, and one of his greatest pieces of advice to me. And we were talking one day about walking down the street and meeting people, and he said, you may never meet anybody. You might be on the sidewalk alone, but if somebody does come and you do cross paths with somebody, just say hello. And that advice stuck with me forever and ever. And then at Singing Hills, as I mentioned, Steve Harrell and Jerry Hollingsworth, both very fine gentlemen. And Jerry, when I was leaving Singing Hills in '98 to go on my own and move to Salt Lake City and go in business up there, he made a comment to me, and I said, Jerry, I don't know what to say to you. And he said, Tom, the only thing you ever need to say is thank you. And those two words, hello and thank you, are incredible pieces of advice, which, by the way, I wish we followed today a little bit more. But those two words have really been important to me in my entire life. And then, of course, I think as other people, having worked with this gentleman, Pat Riley, Pat was really a supporter, really a mentor, and I'm going to say almost single-handedly, and this is going to sound kind of weird, but almost single-handedly worked with the PGA to develop the apprentice program back then. So individual professionals like myself who would be challenged getting into the PGA because we were non-member head professionals at the time, which I was at Singing Hills in 1970, to get into the PGA. And that was the formation of, back then, the apprentice program, now the associate program, that we could, persons like myself and former PGA president Dick Smith and others who went through that program as non-member head professionals to get their membership.
Yeah.
And so my dad, Jerry Hollingsworth, Steve Harrell, Dick Smith, and many, many others. I have so many good friends who I look upon as mentors and in not only the golf business, but in life. And that's something that's so great about what we do and the people that we meet, like Len Dumas, for example. We've become huge friends over the years, and we can count on each other to help each other and call each other and be friends whenever we need to. And I think that's Will Mann, same thing with a lot of different people. And of course, when you're in this business, it's a friendship business. The golf business is a business of friendship, whether you're behind the counter or a member of the PGA or playing or whatever it might be. It's a business of friendship.
Len Dumas, who is has been a regular on this show over the years. Not only is Len a really good guy, but he's extremely well spoken and knows his craft, and so he's always been great to be on the show. You mentioned the hello and thank you, and as I think of the times we've had to be together over the years, and I see you come into a room and everybody's really excited to see you, but you almost have that Arnold Palmer presentation about you. You make sure you see everybody and you say hello to everybody, and so that certainly stuck with you over the years.
Thank you. Yeah, it's fun. I'm not necessarily a social person. I enjoy it. I like this. I love this. I like to see people. And one of the favorite things, the PGA show comes up in a couple of weeks here, and a week after next, I guess. And one of my favorite things is to go up into the member area and just spend time there and get to see everybody. I have a sore hip, so it's hard for me to walk the floor now. But we can go into the member area and just talk to a lot of people and say hi to a lot of people. And that's pretty important, I think. Or out in the lobby and the foyer, the same thing, just spending time up in that area.
Speaking of the PGA Merchandise Show, which is huge and has up to about 40,000 people attending, I heard a story from your friend Gary Plato yesterday that you may have had something to do with the construction of that show, having done a similar version in the Southern California area. Yeah,
we back in the late 70s, the Southern California. We had a couple variations of golf shows in Southern California and through the 70s. And then we started talking. I became a section board member in 74, became a chapter board member in San Diego in 73, and then a section board member in 74. And then was honored to become secretary in 78 and 79, then president in 80 through 82. During that period of time, in the 78, 79, we started talking about, as a section, expanding the shows we're doing. We've been in and out of Las Vegas, back. And we sat down with Roger Ballinger, who then was the director of golf at a place called Industry Hills, still exists. Pacific Palms Industry Hills Resort, I think is what it is. And we put on the number one, the first West Coast conference where we invited people from sections, neighboring sections. Mark Kazire, who I think was secretary at the time, if I'm not mistaken, might have been vice president. He visited, came out. We had this conference about doing a West Coast show. And we said, okay, let's give it a shot. And Roger Ballinger, again, the golf director at Industry Hill, said, okay, we'll give it a shot. We have a garage and we can use, one of those big parking garages, and we can use the lower level of the parking garage, and we'll do this show. Well, this was in September and of 1980. I believe it was 80. And that was a long time ago now. And we opened this show, and moderately successful. It was hot. And we had, and people were under this garage in this garage with no air conditioning. And we had these huge fans that Roger brought in. You couldn't hear anybody talk, but at least it gave some sort of ventilation. But anyway, that's how the West Coast show started. And then it grew. We went to, ended up in Long Beach for a couple of years and became very successful, moved to Las Vegas, became even more in the early 90s. And then the PGA ended up buying that show. And I believe it was 98, if I'm not mistaken, sometime in that time frame. And then consolidated the two as part of the PGA. And then when the PGA sold the show a few years ago, that show was gobbled up into that, the Las Vegas show.
Yeah.
And we are where we are now. The PGA's tried to do or continuing, I should say, to do some kind of a merchandise show. They did in Dallas this past year. They did it in Las Vegas, much smaller, did it in Las Vegas for a couple of years, but now it's back in Dallas. And I hope it becomes successful. But that's how the show worked into the big PGA show, with the PGA finally owning the West Coast show. And we made some good inroads with that show and the Southern California PGA after selling the show. We did build our golf course, opened our golf course, actually here in Beaumont, where I live, coincidentally. And then we ended up selling that golf course in 2007. And it's now owned by the Morongo Casino here that's about 10 miles down the road. And so the golf course is still here. So it's been an interesting path in that regard.
Yeah. Everybody that knows anything about the game recognizes that the pandemic was really good for the game in terms of growth, and the growth seems to be continuing. For someone that spent 53 years around the game, maybe more with your dad before you were a PGA member, but what's Tom Addis's impression of the state of the game today?
I think golf, it's as you mentioned and alluded to, Frank, golf is as popular as it's ever been. The pandemic brought people, pardon the pun, if you will, here, closer together in regards to the game of golf. Granted, we were supposed to be separated, but in the end, golf becoming an outdoor activity that people could do during the pandemic, along with other things. I'm a Jeeper now. I drive my Jeep. That's another sport or activity that became more popular in the pandemic, along with some other outdoor activities, golf. And golf has maintained that level or better in the last 5 years. Because again, it did make people, I believe, appreciate the sport more, the activity more, regardless of your age, regardless of your gender, wherever you are playing golf. And I think we appreciate it more. Yeah, it's sometimes more difficult to get on golf courses, but at the same time, it's you have more and more people by the numbers playing golf. You see it on television all the time with other athletes. I just saw an interview with, and I'm sorry, I don't recall, Knox, and I can't remember the name of the other tight end with Buffalo. He seemed to be more, I saw it on the NFL Network, seemed to be more focused on golf than talking about football and his relationship, the other the other tight end in Buffalo. It was kind of interesting. And of course, our quarterback plays golf as well. So it's interesting to see that dynamic around the world and around the country in regards to people playing golf and how valuable it is. You look at, oh shoot, I have Caitlin Collins on my mind, but Caitlin Clark. Yeah. You look at her on the golf course, and you look at these other athletes and what it means to them to be able to play golf, and these other celebrities is pretty cool, actually. And I don't know if we had that depth of exposure prior to the pandemic,
right?
And I think the exposure now, and it's a fun game. The Tahoe tournament is one of the most exciting, fun events to watch on television. And I think that's what's happened to golf. Much more visibility, much more individual popularity, and it's still considered a healthful activity.
We're talking with Tom Addis, a 53-year member of the PGA of America. I'm going to let you be a commissioner for a day. If there was one thing you thought we ought to change in the game of golf, what would it be?
Saying commissioner of golf, commissioner of the tour, where?
You'd be commissioner of anything you want. How's that?
First of all, no, thank you. But yeah, I think golf is very popular. The tour keeps working on a means to make sure it keeps up with visibility on television. I think that's great. It has become. We need to pay attention to how golf is presented, and I think that the superstars who are out there now need to be exposed, need to be in front of the public. And that's the same thing with other sports, whether it's basketball, baseball, football, soccer, whatever it is. It's the same thing. We need our stars. We need the people. We need the individuals that spectators can focus on. I think that's really important. But at the same time, and I think this is where golf really needs to think about what we're doing. The tour, in fact, have nothing to do with it. I'm just expressing my opinion of how we show the tour. In my opinion, where we're going with the reduced fields and those kinds of things,
yeah,
doesn't give the exposure that I personally believe that the tour should have on television. To me, it's fun. Now, I might be the only one in California that wants to watch Friday afternoon and what happens with the tour and with the cut, or wants to watch that last tournament on the fall swing, the fall tour, to see who gets the top 100, which to me, it should still be 125, but that's, I have nothing to do with those things anymore. But the drama that you can put forth, people kind of get into that kind of stuff. And they talk about it all the time. And I think that's what we're going to miss. And if I was commissioner of whether it's a tour or golf or PGA, I would have fought very, very hard to maintain that opportunity for more people to be the best, to make the top. That's what I feel pretty strongly about. Again, I have nothing to do with it, but I think that's really important for the visibility of our sport and the visibility of those players in that competition and those events. Same thing. It brings golf to a community that might not have the opportunity otherwise, whether it's Reno or wherever it is. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, golf, as you alluded to, has become cool, and anything that we can do to continue to show it that way is really good for the game.
Yeah.
We've been having some fun on the show lately with a few questions that that people kind of argue about on the 19th hole. So I'm gonna run them past you and
Right.
get your quick answers to them. Who's in your mind, who's golf's GOAT? Who's the greatest?
The golf GOAT. Oh boy. I think you almost have to put it into time periods, but I think watching Tiger Woods from the very beginning, the impact that Tiger made, the wins, and when he didn't win, when he was going through his physical issue, all of that rolled into that one Tiger Woods. I think created an entire dynamic for the game,
Yep.
for the sport. So I think he has to be the most impactful person in the sport. There's Arnold Palmer and Mr. Nicklaus, and I don't know if you can separate those individuals. I think they're all so important to what we do, and I think they'll say the same thing for various reasons. But I was watching on the Golf Channel this morning. I happened to thumb through, and Shell's Wonderful World of Golf.
Yeah, right.
And Gene Sarazen and Henry Cotton playing St. Andrews this morning. I mean, it's amazing that you can still see those individuals there and what they're doing. And if you know the history of those two gentlemen, those two golfers, it's exceptional. And I think that's, again, whether it's golf, football, baseball, whatever it might be, I think that historical aspect is pretty important. And I think that's what's really cool about our sport, is the historical aspect of our sport, because it's been around for such a long time. And the individuals that we've had, I think the impact they've made through the years and how important that is. And even, I shouldn't say even, but the leadership over the years of the things that the game has been through and the sport has been through, whether it's a tour, whether it's a USGA, and the leaders that have brought us through, whether it's Pat Riley or whoever that is, I think is pretty important to kind of think about once in a while. So I think, I don't know if there's one person, Frank. I know that's kind of a little cotton of an answer, but at the same time, you watch television and Tiger Woods, most exciting with some of the shots that he pulled off. The Scotty and Rory and these players today, I love to watch them. It's too bad that some of them left the tour for live, in my opinion. But I think that, with Koepka now working on coming back, I think that adds something to the tour.
Yep.
Some kind of an influence for sure, depending on how he's allowed to come back. So it'll be fun to see that.
No, I love your answer, and that's a much better answer than it's him or it's him. So you only get to play one more course in your lifetime. What's it going to be? What course is that?
Well, Cypress Point has always been my favorite golf course in the world. And I was fortunate to get to play there a number of times when Jim Langley was there. And I'll never forget that. And one time, Jim, I called and said, I'd like to bring, we'd like to come up and play. I'd like to bring my son. And no problem. Just try to be here about 7. We have a member guest today. And you need to get off before the member guest. And which we did. It was foggy. We played and we finished the round. And there's about 20 cars in the lot. And I go to thank Jim, and I said, I thought you had your member guest today. We did. We do. We've got 32 players, and that's a big deal for us. So I'll never forget that. But Cypress Point, nothing like it. On the other side of the world, Cruden Bay up in Scotland, northeast of Scotland, is exceptional golf course, and I'd love to play there. when I used to play, and when we'd go over for the Open Championship or Ryder, whatever it might be, playing in Scotland and especially Cruden Bay was exceptional.
And of course, you had the honor of getting the Langley Award so many years ago, and we could spend an entire show talking about Jim
Yeah,
Langley,
yeah, for sure.
but we're both fortunate to get to know him.
Yeah.
What is it about the game? Why do we keep playing the game, Tom?
It's fascinating. It's fun. I think the people also, I think we don't give enough credit to the people who play the game of golf and the sport of golf and the opportunity to spend time with people, all of us. I think that just like today, when do you have the opportunity to do this? Whether it's as friends or professional cohorts, whatever it is. And I think that's what, just like my dad said, it's always a hello out there. And I think that's golf kind of does that to us. And when we're on the golf course, we're all there. And to me, that's why these, like when Knox and Kincaid were talking about golf this morning, I think that's part of what they're talking about is they're kind of out there together, sort of on equal footing.
Yeah.
And that's what's great about what we do in regards to the sport of golf.
Yeah, those are highly tuned professional athletes, making fools of themselves like the rest of us on a golf course trying to be good.
Yeah,
but
for
boy,
sure.
we're out there tomorrow trying again. As we wrap this thing up, Tom, just one more question. When you think about again your career and 53 years with the PGA, and when you look back at it, what makes you most proud?
There's so many things, Frank. I'm so fortunate, to be married for nearly 60 years and go through the entire term of involvement and the professional career with Susan and my family. That's really, a lot of people say that, but that's so important and part of the whole. But you look back on your life, and I was talking with my sister. My sister is in a home. She has Alzheimer's, but she's 78, and I brought up when we were little kids living in Fresno, on Lincoln and Maple in Fresno. And just like I mentioned, going to the restaurant at Fresno Airways and going into those coolers, that they used to line the bottles with the cold water and you'd pull the beverages out of that, the Delaware Punch. And I was reminding my sister that things we used to do, like the swimming holes, literally the old swimming hole. And I dug a swimming hole in our yard, and she got so mad at me because I put her doll in the swimming hole. Anyway, things like that. And it's the same thing on the golf course that like on the phone a couple of weeks ago, talking with Dick Lotz, and I played behind him when he shot 59, and I think it was I can't remember. It wasn't the Southern California Am. It was another big amateur that was played at La Rinconada in San Jose. And I played behind him. He shot 59. And at the time, I wasn't too bad. I wasn't one of the greatest. But I shot 79. I was 20 behind after the first round.
Wow.
And reminiscing with Dick,
Yeah.
who won 5 tournaments on the tour, about things like that are so much fun, and you'll never forget. You'll never forget those kinds of things. And playing golf with Bobby Lund and Ron Cerruto and meeting Jim Langley and the honor of the Langley Award and all that stuff is just it's amazing. The people you meet and the trail along going to with the PGA, my fellow officers and fellow past presidents who we still stay in really deep communication and deep friendships, which is pretty cool. And as life goes along, you never forget that. And to be able to go to play golf at Cypress Point or Cruden Bay and be a referee at the Ryder Cup, and Ken Lindsay and myself being one of the first PGA professionals to be able to officially referee in the Open Championship. Um, uh, and the same thing, serving as a referee at Augusta for 8 years, things like that you were able to do that you don't forget. And working with Pat Riley and working with Ron O'Connor, for example, who was our former executive director in the Southern California PGA, who's now flat on his back in a home, being taken care of. You never forget that kind of stuff. And my father, and as I mentioned earlier, Susan, my wife, my kids, the whole thing, it's exceptional. And I always said I wanted to live till 80. Well, I did and am. And where do we go from here? I hope there's a few more years to enjoy this whole thing. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Well, Tom, you deserve all the good things in life. You've certainly done your share. You've established yourself as one of the greats in the game, and certainly one of the most influential people here in California. We appreciate all you've done and all you'll continue to do, and hats off to you. And enjoy the let's go for 90 this time and see what happens after that.
Let's do it. It's another 10 years. Frank, thank you so much for what you do. This is pretty cool. And your involvement over the years and helping the Northern California section with so much of their activities and MC, all that stuff that we've been able to meet each other and say hi to each other over the years and be friends. And thank you for that.
I appreciate that. For Tom Addis, I'm Frank LaRosa. This is the Golf to Go Radio Hour and People Who Play the Game. Thanks for listening.